Hi, this is Eric from longboxreview.com. Welcome to the show. Today is another pull list review. So I'm going to be talking about some comic books that I read during the month of January 2021. Yay, new year and new comics. At least for me anyway. Well, some old comics too, actually, or maybe just the one. Well, technically more than one, but one I've read before, but I reread. But I'll get to that in a minute. First, I read a bunch of things in January, in some part due to while I was exercising on my bike, riding my bike, spinning my wheels, as it were. And I've talked about this before in previous episodes, where I'm supposed to be exercising every day of the week. Well, every weekday. Anyway, I'm not always successful at it, but for the days that I'm actually on my bike, I read a trade collection or a graphic novel or whatever is handy. And I certainly have a lot of those books on my shelf. So many of these are collections of things that I had ordered and wanted to read. And so I'll be talking about a bunch of those. But up first are some digital comics that I read on the DC Universe Infinite app. And can I just go on record and say I really hate saying DC Universe Infinite? It's a marketing thing. I get it, but good Lord. It's a mouthful. So anyway, on the DCU app, which is how I will continue to refer to it, I read a few things. I read Superman, Man of Steel, issues 80, 81, and 82. And the reason I did so was because of a series of panels that have been going around as a sort of meme during the last year or two, I think. I know I've encountered this before 2020. And I think at some point in 2020, I saw it again. And I took this series of panels and I posted it to my personal Facebook page as I forget what they call it, but I added it as a kind of like a banner thing. Not really banner. I don't remember what they call it now. Featured photo, I think. You may be aware of this. This is the one where it shows Superman, like the Golden Age Superman, talking to a crowd of people. And he's saying the following. Listen up, folks. Call me what you want, but I will never be a champion of Nazism. I will not be anyone's symbol of hate, racial prejudice, and genocide. I'm an American. Like all true Americans, I must strive to be a champion of tolerance and diversity, justice and kindness. That's what being an American, a human being, means. Shame on you if you think otherwise. Wonderful words. Written by, according to the credits here on the DCU app, John Bogdanove and Louise Simonson, with pencils by John Bogdanove, inks by Dennis Janke, with the cover by Bogdanove and Janke. Like I said, I saw that going around online, and I added it to my Facebook page. And then I came across it again. In fact, I think I heard someone on a podcast mention this book, this particular issue. And I realized I had never gone and read it. And so, of course, once I realized what issue it was, Superman, Man of Steel number 80, I went to the app and read it. And then read the next two issues, like I said, 80 through 82. And so this was a great Golden Age Superman-esque, because it's not truly the Golden Age Superman. It's at the time of publication, the modern day Superman having some sort of weird timey-wimey hijinks tale where he and Lois Lane are experiencing life as if they were living in the late 30s. During, pre-World War II. And this Superman, this Golden Age Superman, quote unquote Golden Age Superman, has some adventures in America, of course, and that scene that I just read, where he is being co-opted by these neo-Nazis. Would they be neo-Nazis? That would come later, right? Anyway, Nazis in America, or Nazi sympathizers. Maybe that's the more appropriate phrase. So he deals with them as I described earlier, and then goes on an adventure in Germany, and doesn't quite. I don't think he quite punches Hitler like Captain America did, but he does deal with a lot of things that I honestly don't know if the Golden Age Superman ever dealt with those things in a real continuity type way. I don't think so. But yeah, I'm definitely showing my ignorance of Superman and DC Comics publication history right now. Regardless, I really enjoyed these 3 issues. It was really cool to see Superman drawn in that Golden Age style. If I were a true Superman fan, I would be able to tell you what Bogdanov and Janke are evoking with their depiction of Superman in these stories. But I'm sure they're trying to evoke Joe Shuster's work, but I couldn't say that for certain because it looks to me to be more like a blend of Shuster and maybe some other artists, but I really don't know. It's something I should remedy, I guess. But if you want to read a Superman out of time tale that doesn't take much time to read through, I recommend this. I particularly liked the rendition of the costume. This is, I've seen this before in like early Golden Age Superman images where it looks more like a circus strongman suit, especially in the leggings. But they did a neat thing with the S shield, which is more triangular. In fact, I think it is a triangle. But the way that they drew the stylized S is really cool, and I don't think I've ever seen before. So that's my digital comics reading. Beyond that, I read a couple older issues, but one of which was actually new to me, and that is a couple of issues of Brave and the Bold, issues 177 and 179. And so many years ago, I decided that I wanted to get a bunch of these team-up books. So Brave and the Bold, Marvel 2-in-1, Marvel Team Up, and not just not get a full run of these because I honestly couldn't, not without paying a bunch of money for some of those issues. But so I decided to focus on getting the characters that the lead character would team up with, and those would be the ones that I'm interested in. And so in this case, or maybe even just kind of like oddball team ups. And so I got, like I said, issue 177, which is a team up with the Elongated Man, which is, one of those stretchy heroes that I particularly like. I prefer him over Mr. Fantastic and also Plastic Man. And I'm sure I'm probably in the minority there. But anyway, the cover by Jim Aparo just has the villain of the story, the Hangman, hanging Batman with the stretchy neck of an unconscious elongated man. So, that's pretty interesting. And what's really neat about this story is that it's presented as a mystery to us, the reader. And I think they did this quite a bit, as I recall, reading Batman comics when I was younger. So they would give us the clues, and then basically in this specific case, and I'm pretty sure I saw this in other issues again. They challenged us, the readers. Do you know who the villain is? Have you figured it out, dear reader? And of course I didn't, because I don't play along with those games. I'm not your puppet, DC. But I did enjoy, them going through the mystery, the interaction. I enjoyed more the interaction between Batman and Elongated Man. And in fact, there's this one scene where the Bruce Wayne and Ralph Dibny are talking in Batman's penthouse. This is back when he was not in the Batcave, I think. And Elongated Man says to Bruce, I sure hope this case picks up, though. Maybe one of the victims will leave a nice dying clue or be killed in a locked room. Or, Ralph, how can you talk that way? We're dealing with people's lives. You seem to think this is some sort of game. Don't take everything I say at face value, Bruce. I feel the same as Byron. Look it up. It's Don Juan, Canto 4, stanza 3. Bruce calls to Alfred, "Bring my Byron, would you?" "If I may, Master Bruce, from my years on the stage, I recall the quotation to which Master Dimney refers. Quote, 'And if I laugh at any mortal thing, 'tis that I may not weep.'" And Bruce is looking down at his city, and he says, "Isn't it odd, Alfred? You can be acquainted with someone for years and never really know them?" So I thought that was just a nice little bit of introspection here. You don't really see that kind of writing, depiction of Batman these days, for the most part anyway. The other thing that I found as I've been reading these Brave and the Bolds, the villains sure easily dispatch Batman so that they can trap him and try to kill him. Of course, he has to get out of it. So that happens a lot in here. I don't know that you would. Again, you don't really see that these days. So it's interesting to take a look back at the past and see how these things are. And what a dumb looking costume for the Hangman. He's wearing this black bodysuit. He's wearing, of course, a rope around his neck, a hangman's noose. But what's dumb about it really is the stylized H, the green H over his black bodysuit that stretches from basically his shoulders down his legs, with the cross part of the H being around his belt area, which I maybe I'm being too critical. I'm sure it's a fine enough design. I guess, like I said, I shouldn't be too critical because, the greatest superhero of all has a big S emblazoned on his chest. So I still think it's hokey. The other one is issue 179, and this is something that I bought off the shelf, the spinner rack, as it were, back in the day. And this is a team up between Batman and the Legion of Superheroes. And this is not something you would normally see Batman, or the Legion is not a group of whom Batman would typically team up with because of the time travel aspect. And so we had to have this little convoluted plot involving this character. I think his name was Anton something or another, but he's got this weird. He's got the the blades of an axe on the sides of his head. It's a weird design. But then again, if you take a look at Cosmic Boy's old bustier outfit, maybe not so weird. But anyway, this involves Batman being transferred against his will to the 30th century and then teaming up with the Legion to spoil the plot of not this Anton guy who's featured on the cover, but the mystery villain who's not such a mystery because of the way he's drawn in here. It turns out to be Universo. And basically just a plot to kill the Legion by blowing up like 50 kilometers of Metropolis. That's it. That's the plan. It's just, goofy, late Bronze Age or post Bronze Age fun. All right. Now we get into the collection part of my reading for the month of January, 2021. I have a bunch of these books here. And the first one I'll talk about briefly because I have other plans to talk about this book, this series, in another episode. And this is Giant Days Volume 5. And I will say, at the risk of repeating myself in a future episode, Giant Days is a delight and something I look forward to reading. I bought the first volume of Giant Days when it was first released, and then it sat on my shelf for a while. And I didn't read it, and then I finally did, and I fell in love. And so then I've been trying to read the other. First of all, I had to go find them. I went on a binge last year and decided to buy all of the collections that I could get my hands on, which thankfully was all of them from a few different vendors, however. But now I have them all, and I can't wait to read them because this book is just such a delight. This book features the end of their first year of school. The characters in the book, as it says, their freshman year is coming to a close, and Daisy, Susan, and Esther say goodbye to Catterick Hall forever, literally forever. It's being bulldozed and repurposed as a luxury dorm the following semester. But as one door closes, another opens, and between end-of-semester hookups, music festivals, and moving into their first home together, the life experiences are just getting started. And of course, this is by John Allison, Max Sarin, and Liz Fleming. Yeah, so good. Like I said, I don't want to say too much about this because I plan on talking a lot more about it in a future soon to come episode of the Long Box Review podcast. But I highly recommend this book. One of the next books I read with a lovely Tula Lotay cover is Volume 1 of Safe Sex, or SFSX, here called Volume 1 Protection. This is from Image Comics, and I should have said Giant Days is from Boom. But anyway, the back of the book blurb here from notorious kink writer Tina Horn, and featuring a diverse group of artists including Jen Hickman, Michael Dowling, Alejandra Gutierrez, and Tula Lotay doing covers, comes this book, Safe Sex, a social thriller about sex, love, and torture. In a draconian America where sexuality is strictly bureaucratized and policed, a group of queer sex workers keep the magic alive in an underground club called the Dirty Mind. Using their unique talents for bondage and seduction, they resolve to infiltrate the mysterious government pleasure center, free their incarcerated friends, and fight the power. What that blurb does not tell you is the deeply personal pain that these characters go through in various ways. Not only, as I said on the book here, the draconian government controlling their sexual lives. Other people are tortured, and they're trying to convert them, and other people appear to be brainwashed, and betray those that they worked with in the Dirty Mind Sex Club. This is a you might have guessed, a not safe for work, so to speak, book. Not safe for the kiddies. There are explicit images in this, but it's not at all gratuitous. It treats its subject matter in a mature fashion. What was interesting about this book was there are three main artists on here. I read them earlier. Jen Hickman, who did, I think, 3 of the 7 issues that are collected here. Michael Dowling, who also did 3, I think. And then Alejandro Gutierrez did 1, which was a flashback tale. And so the art styles between Dowling and Hickman are somewhat similar, though I will say I prefer Dowling. And Gutierrez is very different. You can tell it's a different tone, very different style. So it was interesting to see a series like this, and this is something that could go on. I don't know. I'm not aware that it has continued past issue 7, but it certainly could, like I said. But still, it's interesting that they chose to use different artists like this. I can understand using a different artist for like the flashback thing, but why did Dowling not finish the series? Why was Jen Hickman brought in? Was that intentional? Because, like I said, the styles are somewhat similar. So I can only imagine that Dowling had to bow out of the project. I don't know. I have no idea. I'm totally speculating here. The only other thing I'll say about this, and I won't say too much because it may spoil something, is that this ragtag group of folks go off to save one of their own, and there is a twist to it that I appreciated. And I can't say that it is a very satisfying twist in one regard, but it is in another. So I will leave you with that. And then to continue the sexy part of this podcast, can't even say that without laughing, is Volume 1 of Money Shot. So This is by Tim Seeley and Sarah Beatty writing it, Rebecca Isaacs drawing, and Kurt Michael Russell coloring, with letters by Crank. And this is from Vault Comics. This is a good summation of the series. In 2027, an advanced alien civilization made contact, and the people of Earth discovered that they were not alone. An offer to join the civilized universe was made, but then the aliens saw what a total shit show Earth was. Unfortunately, it's true. Engaged in hundreds of wars led by greedy politicians and fumbling to advance technologically, humanity was deemed not worth the effort. The offer was withdrawn. Unable to build spaceships capable of efficient interstellar travel and distracted by petty bickering and pop entertainment, humans eventually lost interest in the stars. Now, in 2032, amid an anti-science presidential administration, and public apathy, scientists in an economically crippled America struggle to fund innovative projects. And so, scientist Christine Ocampo, inventor of the Starshot teleportation device, had a big idea. She'll travel to new worlds, engage intimately with local aliens, and film her exploits for a jaded Earth populace trying to find something new on the internet. And so she gets a group of 4 other scientists that she knows to go along with her and explore the universe, each other, and the complexities of sex. As it says here, a story about scientists having sex with aliens for the glory of mankind and money. So this this book surprised the hell out of me. When I heard about it, I'm like, well, that sounds interesting. But do I want to read it? The whole aspect of exploring the universe in this way intrigued me. I have to admit. But what really surprised me was how this is not just one big joke. It's not a sexual plaything. It's not just titillation. Although there's a certain aspect to this. It is really about exploring the complexities of sex and relationships with these characters, and it's not at all simple. It's not simply told either. I care less about the sexual exploits of these characters, and thankfully, the book also approaches it that way as well, because it is really about the relationships and getting over the hang-ups of sex and male female male relationships. It was a surprise. It was a delight and a surprise. One of the characters is Dr. Doug Koch, a biochemist. He's like this really big guy, really big white guy, bald head. And you see him, the first time you see him, he seems to be pressing a microscope like it's a weight. And so, you're already forming an opinion of him based on this one image. And once Dr. Ocampo, sorry, I'm thinking Star Trek Voyager is getting into my brain. Once she explains this whole idea of using this teleportation technology, one of the other scientists, whose name is Bree Wander, she's a physicist. She came up with basically a universal translator, if I remember the story correctly. And then, of course, the other scientists' talents and skills and knowledge come into play during the rest of the series. And anyway, like I said, back to Dr. Koch. After Ocampo explains all this, did I make it clear? Ocampo wants to do this because she wants more money to fund her research and to develop more technology. And so, the sex part is just a means to an end. Anyway, so she explains all this stuff so that we can get back to doing what we're supposed to be doing, competing for glory, making the world a better place, sciencing. And they all just kind of look at her for a beat, And then Dr. Koch puts the microscope that he's been pressing on the table and says simply, supermassive black hole. What? Dr. Ocampo says, my porn name. I'm in, but only if everyone calls me supermassive black hole. And so immediately Dr. Koch surprises me because he's going against expectations based on what we've already seen. And I think it's a wonderful examination of self and other and how we see each other and what our prejudices bring to our perceptions of others, and how, people aren't that. They're not just that, for sure. And Tim Seeley and Sarah Beatty and Rebecca Isaacs are just doing a fantastic and unexpectedly lovely job at telling the story. And I'm very, very much looking forward to reading Volume 2, which I have already ordered. In fact, it came down to the point where I was looking through previews and saw that Volume 2 was solicited, and I hadn't read Volume 1 yet. And so I, as I often do when I am in that situation, I immediately pick up that book and start reading it. And I was so pleasantly surprised, and I'm so glad that I have read it. There's a couple scenes in here where Dr. Ocampo says, basically, we have to be intimate with each other. And it's not for any, just to get our rocks off. It is to break down those barriers, because they're going to go off into space and engage in intimate relations with alien cultures and be filming this for people back home. And so they need to be intimate with each other, familiar with each other, and comfortable with each other. And so what would normally be something presented as a joke was presented in a very touching way between Dr. Ocampo and the aforementioned Dr. Wander. Dr. Wander does not care for Dr. Ocampo. At least that's how it's presented at first. And they have sex with each other, and then and apparently it was very good. And then afterwards, Dr. Ocampo requests that they cuddle, and Dr. Wander does not want to do that, but then she does. So it was just very sweet. And then there's another scene between Dr. Koch and then the other male doctor here, Dr. Omar Steinberg, an astrophysicist. They have sex with each other, and they have this, again, I'm using this word a lot for this book, but this very intimate conversation about their past and how they grew up, and growing up male in these different situations, but there are some similarities between them and whatnot. So I just really thought this was a very well done book, and it's not just about the naked people in it that makes it interesting. In fact, that is probably the less interesting, not the least interesting part, because that's actually the plot about the alien conqueror queen that it makes up much of the story in this first volume. Anyway, highly recommend this one. Two collections of the same series. Well, technically not, but basically they are. This is Dark Ark, Volume 3, and then Dark Ark After the Flood. And these are both from Aftershock, of course. This is by Colin Bunn and Juan Doe and Jesus Hervas on the After the Flood one. So this is a book that I have been reading for a little while now. Basically, the premise is, in case I haven't talked about this before, 2 arks were built to survive the flood, the biblical flood. One was filled with the creatures of the natural world. The other was populated by everything else. And so the Noah's counterpart is this sorcerer who made a deal with I'll just say a demon. And so he built an ark and then brought like the vampires and the chimeras and, just all the fantastical creatures, not all of whom are wonderful, of course. They're the stuff of nightmares. And they set off too, and they're off to find land after the flood, and also then to create the world in the vein of the demon's view of it, and make a darker world. I'm not quite sure how that is supposed to work out because we don't really get to that or get that explanation. But it's been an interesting story so far, with many of the creatures of the story bickering among themselves, conspiring against each other, feeding off of each other, conspiring against the sorcerer, and it's a lot of politics going on this ship, all at the same time. All during the same time, they're just trying to survive and get to find land and build their own civilization. And in volume 3, they essentially make it to land and then find that it is occupied by a force that is in some ways more powerful than them. So that's how volume 3 ends, which lots of fun. I especially love the Wando art. And really what I like about it is the colors of this. The line work is really kind of simple, but it's really the colors and the shading that they use to really make this book stand out. There's a lot of scenes which are imbued with a lot of reds and yellows, and that's, those are a lot of the day scenes, really. And then the night scenes are a lot of purples and blacks and muted reds, which I don't know, I just really dig the way that they are coloring this book. And then despite myself, I find that I'm liking some of these, quote unquote monsters, including the manticore called Cruel, Kruul, who has allied himself with the sorcerer and the sorcerer's family. And then he also, during the course of volume 3, ends up with a son, and he has to deal with that, which is just, it's funny. And then after the flood is them dealing with them finding land, and then also the story ends with a certain other arc is on its way. And so I hope we get more of this, because After the Flood was actually a separate miniseries, apart from the Dark Arc ongoing series, of which there were 3 volumes. And so when I saw the solicitation for After the Flood, I thought, oh, they're wrapping this up in this miniseries, which is unfortunate because, like I said, it's been a wonderful read so far, but they left it open for more. So I'm very curious if we will get a volume. Well, I guess this is volume 4, a volume 5 of this book. Okay, so from monsters and the supernatural to more superhero fare. First up is Batman 3 Jokers from DC Black Label by Jeff Johns, Jason Fabok, and Brad Anderson. And this is the 3 Jokers, the story that we've been waiting on for I don't know how many years now. Finally saw print, wonderfully illustrated by Fabok and Anderson. That's probably the most positive thing about this book, I have to say. In case you were living under a rock and don't know, I forget now. It's been so long. Batman sits in the Mobius chair and discovers that the Joker is not one person, but 3 people. And so there's this big mystery that was set up years ago, and this is the resolution to that. And so there are, like I said, 3 Jokers, and one is what did they say? The criminal, the clown, and the comedian. So the criminal, the comedian, and the clown. That's how they present it in that order in the book. And along the way, so we have Batman, Batgirl, and Jason Todd, Red Hood. All, of course, the latter 2 dealing with the trauma that Joker has inflicted upon them. And at the same time, there's the Joker's eventually, do I want to say? Something happens to the Jokers. I'll just say that. And it's to It's to prove a point, again, to Batman. Joker is always trying to prove a point to Batman. It's something that a lot of writers touch on all the time. So that's why I say, the art on this was probably the more satisfying aspect of this book, because this feels like just retread material. I've read stories where Barbara has dealt with the trauma of the Joker shooting her. I've read material featuring Jason dealing with the fact that the Joker killed him. And I've also seen a couple movies now, animated movies about that very subject. And of course, the greater impact of that, which of course is touched on by Jason Todd, is, the Joker has done all these evil things, not just to the citizens of Gotham, but to close people in Bruce's circle. And yet Bruce allows him to live. So, how do you deal with that? Does your moral code, does it really trump ridding the world of such evil? And I guess that's really just the argument for capital punishment, right? And it's not an easy one. I actually struggle with that argument myself. But the problem is they don't really, Johns and company does not really delve into it. It's just mentioned and glossed over in favor of the character drama that the Joker flares up within the two younger characters. And then there's a couple points of this I just wanted to touch on. I don't want to reveal too much, but we'll see how it goes. But there is Jason has a moment with Barbara, or they have a moment with each other. Yeah, that's probably the best way to put it. But then, of course, Barbara puts the kibosh on that. And then there's a touching scene later in the book that is very sitcom-esque in its execution, but definitely not in the tone. And I don't know. I am very public and about my dislike for the character Jason Todd, especially when he became Red Hood. I actually didn't mind him so much when he was Robin. But when he became Red Hood and he's become that character in the Batman family, I don't care for him. And so to put those two together, even in the briefest of fashions, just does not sit well with me. The other thing was there was another reveal, which your mileage may vary, is maybe even more important than there's three Jokers. Is the revelation that Batman, he's always known who the Joker really was. In fact, he knew shortly after he encountered the Joker the first time. What's more important than that is, well, okay, let me go back to that. So again, given what Batman knows Joker has done to his proteges, and he knows who the Joker is, shouldn't that obligate him to do something about that? Is there any means by which having that knowledge would allow him to address the Joker in a more permanent fashion? And I don't necessarily mean kill him. Batman should never kill. In fact, most superheroes should never kill. No superheroes should kill, because then they're not superheroes, right? Anyway, so yeah, what kind of obligation does Bruce have given his knowledge? But then there's another thing that happens in the story involving Joker's family, and I'll just leave it at that I found quite touching and demonstrates where Bruce may fail as a father to Barbara and Jason. He makes up for, narratively at least, in this particular act that I won't go into detail about. So you just have to read it and find out. But I did like that. The only other thing I'll say, again, having to do with the quality of the story, is the absence of Dick Grayson here. Now, I know, Dick hasn't suffered, quote unquote, in the same way that Barbara and Jason have, but, he was there early on with Batman and the Joker. And so, and I'm sure he survived his fair share of Joker traps and whatnot. So having that different perspective, I felt would have elevated the story a little bit more. And maybe, Dick being Dick Grayson, who he is, he could have helped the situation, at least tried to help Barbara and Jason deal with what they're going through in this particular story. But then that wouldn't allow for Barbara and Jason to have that moment either. So, a very calculated move, I think, on Jeff Johns' part to only include certain characters here. Anyway, it was okay. What I particularly loved, this is probably my favorite of everything that I'm going to talk about today. I've got this and one more book to talk about, is from Dynamite Comics, Peter Cannon Thunderbolt by Kieran Gillen and Casper Wingard. Mary Safro does colors and Hassan Atzman Elhau letters. This was a delight. However, at first when I read it, I thought it relied too much on being a retold Watchmen story. Peter Cannon, of course, is the inspiration for Ozymandias in Watchmen, and basically Gillen is retelling Watchmen for a good chunk of the first part of the story. But once you get past that, there's some really interesting ideas that Gillen and Wingard are bringing into this, and they refer to it as formalism in here. And so there's a particular scene where Peter Cannon, the Thunderbolt, has his super team companions lay down on this grid, and it's a 9-panel grid. And so again, connections to Watchmen, right? But it goes beyond that. And there's a point in the story in which Cannon uses that formalism to break through to other worlds. And so it's just a very clever use of comic bookness, comic book tropes, comic book structure to integrated into the story that I thought was shy of ingenious. It's at the very least it's very interesting to read. Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and it just doesn't just stop with like the 9-panel grid. There's other aspects of comic book storytelling, such as the inner monologue that's touched on as a method of or a use of power, I'll say, in here. And in the end, we even have a nice growth of character in Peter Cannon, because at the very beginning of the book, he is presented as very detached and doesn't want to save the world, doesn't care to save the world. Why should the world be saved? It's a hellhole. So why even bother? And as the story goes along and he goes into the quote unquote real world at one point and encounters his real world counterpart, he learns a very valuable lesson in humanity. And I thought that was really nice. The only other thing I'll say about the book, besides you should go read it, is that it's an oversized. I got the oversized hardcover, which is about I'll say about an inch wider and almost 2 inches taller than your typical comic book. And I don't understand why they did this. There's nothing in the art that really lends itself to the larger pages. They're just bigger pages. So, I mean, I guess in some cases there's more space to put like text, caption boxes and whatnot. But beyond that, I'm not really seeing a whole lot of innovative page layouts or anything. So. And then similarly, For the final book, this is Adventure Man, Volume 1 by Matt Fraction, the Dodsons, and Clayton Coles. And this is an oversized hardcover collection as well. And this is even bigger than the Thunderbolt collection. They are the same height, but the Adventure Man collection is about another inch plus wider. And again, I don't see what advantage we have here. These are just bigger pages. There's nothing, again, very innovative about the art or the page layout here. But since I'm talking about the art, it's very nice Dodson art. I've seen this before though. It's good art. It's just okay. It's there. But the story, the reason I wanted to read this in the first place, it says here, where his story ended, her story begins. The story of Adventure Man, the greatest pulp hero of all time, ended in a heartbreaking cliffhanger with our hero facing his very execution. Now, learn the startling truth about what came next. Decades after his seeming demise, the world has all but forgotten Adventure Man, save for single mother Claire and her adventure fan son Tommy. Together, they'll light the spark of Adventure Man's resurrection, but if the good guys are coming back, you can bet the bad guys won't be far behind. And so this is from Image Comics as well, collecting Adventure Man number 1 through 4. In this deluxe edition, it says, very nice to look at. The story involving the mother Claire, not as interested in that. In fact, I gravitated more towards the flashback stuff, telling us about the original Adventure Man, rather than what is going on with Claire, because, and this is something I hate about some comic books that I've read over the years, and in fact, more recently, is that something happens to the characters, and instead of trying to figure out what's going on, why it's happening to them, etc., they just kind of go about blissfully, ignorantly about their day. Like, oh yeah, I'm now 2 feet taller and 20 pounds heavier, but I'll just go to work. And I'm horribly summarizing something that happens in the book, but it's just like, what? If that happened to me, I'd be a little more concerned about it. And not only would I be concerned about it, my wife would be concerned about it. My family would be concerned about it. But nobody seems to be concerned about what's going on with Claire, other than she's behaving weirdly, and that's it. So I didn't care for that. I'm not quite sure what Fraction's going for with that. Fraction and Dodson in this, but it's a story that's reminiscent of pulp adventures, and I like that aspect of it. So, if you like Terry Dodson's art, you should pick this up. I would have been quite happy with a non-deluxe edition hardcover of this, because now I have to store this somewhere else other than with the rest of my collection. So I'll need to pay more attention to that. This is the thing. The same thing about the Thunderbolt book. I had no idea that these were oversized collections. I need to pay more attention when I'm ordering this stuff. But anyway, that's beside the point. So there you go. That's my January 2020 books that I've read. I'm already well into my list of February books, even though I technically am recording this in early March. It's those times, man. I only have so many hours in the day. But I will be back to talk about those February books at some point in the near future, and hopefully also my year-end wrap up that I usually do. I normally put that out in February, but here we are in March as I'm recording this. So hopefully soon I will have that retrospective done as well. Let me know what you think about these particular books that I have talked about. And then let me know also what you're reading. What are you liking? And you can do so. You can let me know these things by emailing me at longboxreview@gmail.com. You can also leave comments at the blog, longboxreview.com. And also on Twitter, you can message me there at Longbox Review. And with that, I leave you. Thank you for listening, and I will talk to you soon.